Altos is brought to you with the kind compliments of Rituals, Coffee House, and Belgrose Funeral Home.
Good evening and welcome to Altos, a weekly news and current affairs program produced by the Catholic News and broadcast on Trinity TV and TTT. I'm Roger Sant. Our top stories this week. Government extends an invitation to Pope Leo XIV to visit Trinidad and Tobago. A robbery at the St. Mary's RC Church in St. James. The intruder is caught by the parish priest in the act. Schools will soon be out, and Archbishop Jason Gordon raises concerns about an event in Tobago that targets young people. To ban or not to ban, we hear the two sides of vaping. And the Catholic Charismatic Renewal International gets the blessing of the Holy Father in their mission to evangelize America. Now to our top story. Pope Leo XIV has received a letter of invitation from the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the Archdiocese to visit this country. The Holy Father visits Spain from Saturday, June 6th. It will be the 8th nation he has visited since beginning his papacy in May 2025. He's scheduled to visit France in September and is expected to go to South America in November. Will he ask those who coordinate his papal trips to include 1 or 2 stops in the Caribbean? Here's Catholic News editor Raymond Sims on that question.
The central government and the Archdiocese of Port of Spain have invited Pope Leo XIV to visit Trinidad and Tobago. This, according to Archbishop Jason Gordon, our guest on last Friday's Altos program, as he spoke about last month's ad limina visit to Rome of the Antilles Episcopal Conference.
You know, Holy Father, we really would like you to visit this region. I said, a government has invited you. He said, I said the government of Trinidad and Tobago. He said, when did that come? I said, it is being delivered to you as we speak, because an official copy went to the nuncio, who will send it officially, and then I took a copy myself and handed it to the Secretary of State, who manages all of those matters. The last time was in the 1980s. It was John Paul was the last pope that we saw in our region. He said, oh, that's a long time. I said, yes, it is.
The last pope to visit was indeed Pope John Paul II on February 5th, 1985. That's 41 years ago. St. John Paul II's brief but historic 7-hour pastoral visit occurred at the conclusion of his 25th apostolic journey to Latin America, which included stops in Venezuela, Ecuador, and Peru. It's highly expected that Pope Leo will visit Peru, a country which he considers his second home, in November this year. Archbishop Gordon sounded hopeful when asked if a visit to TNT was possible in the not-too-distant future.
He didn't turn it down, and he certainly, not only did he listen, he engaged it. Now, if I wanted to deflect, I just wouldn't raise it. But the fact that he asked the question and asked when last and realized how long it was, we just pray and wait and hope that this is something that will happen. I know we raised it also with the Secretary of State when we visited him, and he acknowledged that. So that's one of the things we leave there.
So all we can do now, as the Archbishop has suggested, is pray and wait and hope. I'm Raymond Sims for Catholic News Altos.
The Holy Father has visited Turkey and Lebanon, Monaco, the African continent, and in 2027 is expected to visit South Korea. Well, on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, 2 days before the solemnity of Corpus Christi, in which Catholics celebrate the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, 2 monstrances were stolen from the St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in St. James. Father Emmanuel Pierre, the parish priest at that church, found himself face-to-face with an intruder early Tuesday morning as the robbery was in progress. Fortunately, he was unharmed and was able to scare the intruder off. Laura Pickford-Gordon has more in this report.
Father Emmanuel Pierre was carrying out his usual morning routine, opening the St. Mary's RC Church after 5 a.m. and preparing for the 6:15 a.m. Mass. But on Tuesday morning, as he entered the sacristy, he realized something was not right. He saw a side door facing the compound of the St. James Medical Complex was prized open, and a small table was out of place near the door, and came face to face with an intruder.
So I shouted loudly, I caught you. And he sped quickly to the door to make the escape. What I did is I said, run to the window to see exactly what direction he's going.
Upon checking to see what was taken, he discovered that 2 monstrances valued at $15,000 were missing. Father Pierre said the intruder also tried to take the tabernacle.
So I was to, because of that, I had to cancel mass because they wanted the crime scene, you know. So because things were in the church, the pigfoot was there. There's a bag containing a laptop that took preparing to leave.
With criminal activity commonplace in society, Father Pierre said it is clear anyone can be a victim.
I tell people it's a matter of time. Everybody's touched. Nobody's immune. So all we have to do is make best preparations to how we can mitigate.
This is the second church robbed within days. On May 28th, the St. John the Baptist RC Church was robbed and a quantity of cash taken. Vicar for Communications, Father Robert Christo, told the Catholic news Altos, when places of worship become targets for theft or desecration, it wounds not only a faith community, but also the moral fabric of society itself. End quote. Father Christo said this calls for greater vigilance, security, and renewed respect for faith communities and sacred spaces. This is Lara Pickford Gordon for the Catholic News, Altos.
And on the solemnity of Corpus Christi, Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon celebrated Mass at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception before the annual procession through parts of East Port of Spain. But his homily was less about ritual and more about national soul searching. He warned that Trinidad and Tobago has become obsessed with material wealth while ignoring the poor, and he called on Catholics to understand that the Eucharist demands we be our brother's keeper. Klaisha Best has more.
The Feast of the Body and Blood of Christ drew the faithful in their numbers to the cathedral, despite the early morning showers that have become synonymous with Corpus Christi celebrations. But Archbishop Gordon used the occasion to deliver a sharp critique of the nation's values. He reminded the congregation that God led Israel through the desert for 40 years to test their hearts, and said that Trinidad and Tobago, blessed with oil, gas, and fertile land, is failing the same test.
Rather than recognizing that man does not live by bread alone, we only wanted to eat the bread and not the giver of the bread. And everybody trying to eat a food, and by trying to eat a food, storing up more for themselves than they absolutely need.
The Archbishop warned that the nation's obsession with material things has revealed a hardened heart.
We have become a nation that has wanted only the material stuff, wanted only to feed off of the sensational stuff, wanted only what is glamorous. And it reveals our heart, that rather than taking the rich gift of natural resource that God gave us and bringing it for the development of all of our people, we have taken it, brothers and sisters, to feed ourselves.
He reminded the congregation that the Eucharist is not a private devotion. It creates fellowship with God and with one another. Before taking to the streets, the Archbishop called the faithful to raise their eyes beyond earthly striving, saying, "You are sons and daughters of God. You feed on the bread of angels. Ask for the grace to become who you already are." The procession through the streets of Port of Spain was well attended despite the dark clouds, passing along areas like Piccadilly and Nelson Streets, where Monsignor Martin Sergiu prayed for peace.
We also noticed as we walked down the street, little sign saying that we are for peace. We want peace. We thank you for the peace that we enjoy, and we pray most of all that the peace of Christ will reign in our hearts.
I am Klaisha Best for For Catholic News, Altos.
Well, many students are preparing to head to Tobago for post-examination celebrations, including the popular Island Crashers event from June 25th to the 28th at the Pigeon Point Heritage Park. But while the experience is often marketed as a rite of passage, there are growing questions about what young people are actually exposed to. Among those raising concerns is Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon. He spoke to Altos about this issue last Friday. Here's what he had to say.
You know, I'm happy for young people to breathe, to get past exams. I think we put too much pressure on our young people for their exams. The SC is really, really difficult. And then CAPE and CSEC are also really difficult. So there's a lot of anxiety that our young people face in that. And I understand why after that level of anxiety, you want a brain cooler. But we've developed a culture that I think we need to relook at. And I think parents particularly have to be a little more discerning about. Island Crashers in Tobago, where our children go for a week for a series of parties that have all kinds of other things happening and engagements happening, has become a place where many parents have said to me, you see young children, girls and boys lying down on the side of the road completely drunk. Now, that's not culture. That is debauchery. That is asking yourself for trouble. And that's setting up a generation having come out of the discipline of school to descend into complete indiscipline as a way of celebrating that. Something is fundamentally wrong here. And I really want to appeal to parents. Please, please understand what it is you're sending your child to. If you need to, go with them. Make sure there's proper and adequate supervision. And the parents I have spoken to who have gone to Island Crashers have said to me they are ashamed of what they saw, and they're appalled that this could happen, and they're appalled that a society could just allow this to happen to our young children without being checked. And I think we have to now start checking and putting limits, guardrails, for the sake of our children.
Right, and that has to happen at the parental level and also at the official level. I imagine the police maybe have to step up their patrols, etc.
The police have to step up their patrols, but those who brand Island and who own that brand of Island Crashers, I think they should start self-regulating this immediately. And they should start thinking about how are we going to make this a safe place for the young people that are coming. If this is your brand and you're making a lot of money out of it because they make a lot of money out of it, then start self-regulating it because it has to serve the children of this nation. And I think we need a conversation among parents about what we really want for our children and what kind of exposure our children should be having.
And I guess part of it as well is that gap that probably exists among the youth and the parents, because some of this is fueled by social media, and the parents may not actually see it unless they go.
And parents feel as if their hands are in a handcuff and they have to let their child go. You don't have to let their child go. They don't have the money to pay for Island Crashers. It's expensive. They only could go if you give them the money. And a parent is not a best buddy of a child. A parent is a parent, setting the moral tone, the character tone of a child. You have to become parents to your children.
And those concerns are already being echoed by some who have experienced Island Crashers firsthand. Altos reporter Kaylan Jordan continues the story.
For many students, Island Crashers represents freedom after months of intense academic pressure. But accounts from those who have attended suggest a more complex reality.
I saw my peers and even persons younger than me abuse this freedom and independence because they fell into the aspects of drinking and getting drunk. See, many persons were having sex and were just living their lives.
Others say the environment can be overwhelming, especially for first-time partygoers.
I think I had a fun but interesting experience at Island Crashers. It was my first party as a teenager, has really enlightened me, and then also had, the sexual activities that were going on, and well, it had a lot of freeness.
The Episcopal delegate for the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission is one parent who accompanied her children to the event. She told Altos these experiences point to a deeper issue: preparation.
What concerns me most about events like Island Crashes is the fact that a lot of children, and I say children because there are a lot of underage children who could be there. So there's a lot of excessive drinking, sex, drugs. I don't know how to behave in a setting like that.
Sim says parents must take a more active role long before these events.
You need to start to talk to your children about the excesses of things that can happen. They start to call parents and other parents and find out who else going. So you get a network because the children have a network, yeah?
And while teenagers may see these trips as freedom, Sim says that freedom must come with responsibility.
You can keep your dignity and still have fun.
She also has a direct message for young people heading to these events.
If you know you're not accustomed to drinking alcohol, don't let that be the first place that you have alcohol, because you don't know how you respond.
I am Kaylan Jordan reporting for Catholic News, Altos.
At a time when many families are struggling with division and conflict, Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon is urging them to choose forgiveness over resentment. His Grace was the chief celebrant at the Mass for Families at the Minor Basilica of the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception on Saturday, May 30th, Trinity Sunday weekend, and focused his homily on the connection between the Holy Trinity and family life. Catholic News editor Raymond Sims tells us more.
What does the family and the Trinity have in common? This was the question Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon posed several times to the congregation during the Mass for Families at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception on Saturday, May 30th. Some responded with words such as love, unity, relationship, and fruitfulness. Drawing from the book of Exodus, His Grace reflected on God's response after the Israelites broke their covenant through idolatry. He observed that rather than abandoning the people, God revealed himself as a God of mercy, tenderness, and compassion.
I am the God of mercy. I am the God of tenderness. I am the God of compassion. I am the God who forgives to 1,000 generations. I am that God.
Archbishop Gordon recalled that the late Pope St. John Paul II described the family as a human experience through which people learn to love, while the Trinity remains the perfect model of self-giving.
The Father holds nothing to himself. He gives everything to his Son. The Son holds nothing, gives everything to the Holy Spirit. The Spirit holds nothing, gives everything to Father, Son, and to us.
While modern society often encourages people to pursue status, prestige, and personal advancement, His Grace reminded the congregation that authentic love always comes down to meet others in their struggles.
And this is what the family is supposed to be, a school of love, a place where mercy is shared out, a place where people, when they mess up, are given mercy.
He encouraged spouses to pray for one another, parents to release resentment towards their children, and children to forgive the pain they may have experienced from a parent.
Whatever has been held, let it be released. Whatever was held over resentment, let it be released in love and mercy right now.
I am Raymond Sims reporting for Catholic News Altos.
Well, a new initiative aimed at fostering a deeper appreciation for Trinidad and Tobago's heritage among young people has been launched at the primary school level. Todd's Road RC has become the first school in the country to establish a Heritage Keepers Club, an initiative of the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago. The program seeks to inspire students to become guardians of the nation's rich cultural and historical legacy. Altos reporter Dale Sedeno was at the launch and brings us more.
On Wednesday, Todd's Road RC made history by becoming the first school in Trinidad and Tobago to establish a Heritage Keepers Club. The Heritage Keepers Program, an initiative of the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago's Education Outreach Unit, is designed to cultivate a greater appreciation for the nation's heritage among young people. Chief Executive Officer of the National Trust, Graham Sweet, emphasized the importance of heritage preservation and the role of the young students.
You are the pioneers. You are leading the charge for the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. We often speak about preserving our heritage and preservation activity, but it includes teaching, sharing, and passing on knowledge to the next generation. Today we are not only launching a club, but beginning something that we hope will have a lasting impact for years and I dare say decades to come.
Representative of the Ministry of Education, Dr. Adesh Ramlal, highlighted the positive impact the initiative can have on both the students and the country. His sentiments were echoed by Chief Executive Officer of the Catholic Education Board of Management and Vicar for Education, Father David Khan.
This Heritage Keepers Club, which is launched today, is a keeping of the stories of the past. Therefore, today is a special day because the future of this school is a keeper of heritage. And in keeping that heritage will help mold and fashion every individual and person and the entire community, and by extension, all of Trinidad and Tobago.
95 students were officially inducted as junior members of the Heritage Keepers Club, receiving commemorative pins and membership cards bearing their names. The National Trust has also identified Brasso RC and Tabakita RC as the next schools to join the program. I am Dale Sideno, reporting for Catholic News, Altos.
Time for a short break. When we return, to ban or not to ban, we hear the two sides of vaping.
In this Sunday's issue of the Catholic News, registered dietitian Cherise Bronte-Tinque offers advice on the foods to eat to keep your blood pressure in check. Contributor Matthew Wolford shares how visiting the gravesite of his deceased maternal grandparents remains a source of inspiration. And there's a special Caribbean feature on a Haitian bishop recovering from serious burns, how he sees signs of God's tenderness. Here is the clergy anniversary for this week and upcoming event. I'm Raymond Sims, editor of the Catholic News.
Make sure and pick up your copy of the Catholic News. Well, the Trinidad and Tobago Cancer Society and the Vape Association of TNT both say there are misconceptions about vaping and vapes. However, they have opposing perspectives on what these are. Archbishop Gordon got the divergent views on vapes and the issue of youths vaping for the second part of this Belgrove's sponsored segment.
This sponsored segment of Altos is brought to you with the kind compliments of Belgrove's Funeral Home. We do more than just say we care.
The TNT Cancer Society has been conducting anti-smoking and anti-vaping outreach to schools through partnership with the Scotia Foundation. Dr. Vasant Basdeo, a member of the Education Committee, said the program provides health education to students, teachers, and parents. He shared the experience at one school.
It was the second month of the term, and over 20-something students were already suspended for using these vaping devices. So it is a real problem here in Trinidad and Tobago, and we really need to start clearing the air, literally and figuratively, about all these misconceptions about vaping.
Dr. Basdeo underscored the health consequences to youth engaging in vaping, referring to the medical condition e-cigarette or vaping product use-associated lung injury, identified by the United States Centers for Disease Control in 2019 following a spike in emergency room visits.
These young persons were showing up in the emergency rooms with these lung injuries, and when they did the investigation, they were associated with these vaping devices. So not only the lung injury, it also damages the lining from the mouth all the way down to the lungs, damaging the endothelial and epithelial linings of our cardiovascular and respiratory system.
Nicotine is a component of the majority of vapes, and Dr. Basdeo said some of the after effects of nicotine withdrawal for young people include agitation, restlessness, and impulsivity.
Emotional control isn't there because of this addiction to nicotine. So without it, they either look for another immediate gratification, things like food, other drugs, other substances, or they act out because they're feeling shaky, tremulous, heart is racing, shortness of breath, anger, and we see it in our schools and our young population.
He's also concerned about the dangers posed by an unregulated vape industry.
So we have found in laboratories across the world things like formaldehyde, what we use to preserve the bodies in Mount Hope, things like lead, nickel, and of course high unregulated concentrations of nicotine. In one vape is equivalent to 300 cigarettes.
Richard Hill, president of the Vape Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Vape TT, and owner of Vapalot Store, said from the start vaping has always been promoted as a reduced harm product. He asserted that although vapes have been around internationally since 2007, there have been no reports of large numbers of people dying or side effects as with tobacco products.
It's kind of obvious that it is reduced risk. And still, in being conservative and responsible, we're not going to say it's no risk. It's not recommended for people who don't smoke or don't have an issue with nicotine.
Hill defended vaping, noting that when popcorn lung was linked to workers in a popcorn factory exposed to extended time to diacetyl, a drug used to give a creamy taste to some vapes, the vape industry stopped using it. The Vape Association has 8 members, and Hill says it follows a code of conduct based on UK and US policies, including a ban on sales to anyone under 18. They have given feedback to the Tobacco Control Unit of the Health Ministry on key points to be included in regulations, but he's against a total ban on vaping.
What's being done in the UK? They have adopted a very healthy, progressive stance on the whole vaping thing. They do have guidelines on things like sizes and quantities and nicotine levels and this kind of thing, as well as they have the age limitations, the marketing and advertising limitations.
On World No Tobacco Day, on May 31st, the World Health Organization estimated that 40 million children 13 to 15 years are using tobacco products and 15 million are using e-cigarettes. It appealed to governments to act decisively to ban flavors, restrict advertising and promotion, and regulate product design and packaging. This is Lara Pickford-Gordon for Catholic News, Altos.
This sponsored segment of Altos was brought to you with the kind compliments of Belgrove's Funeral Home. We do more than just say we care.
Evangelize America is the theme of a new initiative to spread the gospel in America, and at the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV has given his blessing to the Catholic Charismatic Renewal International Service, the organization behind the initiative. We have more in this EWTN report.
I thank you for your commitment and encourage you to continue your mission.
With these words, Pope Leo stoked the fires of the Catholic Charismatic Renewal International Service, known as Parish. The organization just announced a new initiative called Evangelize America, aimed at bringing together Christians from different traditions.
As Catholics, we need to be the ones who initiate not only missionary discipleship in our parishes as parish intentional communities, but also missionary disciples in our neighborhoods as neighborhood intentional communities.
The initiative will consist of setting up small, intentional groups focused on pursuing full communion between local Christian denominations. The Pope held an audience with Parish on Saturday. It was his first meeting with the group since his election, but he joins a long line of popes who encourage the development of the charismatic movement.
My venerable predecessors recognized this development as a great gift to the Church. I too wish to foster the relationship of mutual respect, closeness, and support between the See of Peter and the great family of the Catholic Charismatic Renewal.
For those who took part in the event, the Pope's words and encouragement inspired them to stay strong in their mission.
And that was one of the things that the Holy Father, he spoke to this focus of worshiping God, echoing Pope Benedict XVI, and the movement's focus on worshiping God, on reminding the Church of the real fruits of the Holy Spirit, and that's ultimately what we're about.
And it's precisely those fruits of the Holy Spirit that Pope Leo says inspires all of us to spread the gospel message to the rest of the world as an act of love.
The renewed presence of the Spirit has awakened in you a new capacity to love, inspired by divine charity itself.
And that's a wrap for Altos this week. Thank you for viewing. We remind you to continue praying for Trinidad and Tobago, read your Bible, and learn your faith. Well, we know it's only June, but as Trinis, we can listen to the sweet sound of Parang anytime, right? This week, Dominic Gooding of the Sacred Heart Boys RC School earned the award from the National Parang Association for Best Male Vocalist in the National Schools Parang Competition 2025. The award was presented by Joseph Bertrand, the National Youth Officer of the association. So as we go, we leave you with the images of the presentation and the sweet sounds of the Sacred Heart Boys as they performed at last year's competition.
Altos was brought to you with the kind compliments of Rituals Coffee House and Belgrove's Funeral Home. We do more than just say we care.